Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at this Your Overseas Home webinar, Buying a Home in Spain, Meet the Experts who will get you there. My name is Christopher Knight. I am Senior Editor at Your Overseas Home and also at Spain Property Guides. And I've been writing about Spain since 2004, and a lot has changed in those years. It's got easier, it's got safer, but there are issues, and we all know it can be a stressful process. So that's why we do these webinars to help you, to help get you there nice and safely. It's great to have you all with us, whether you're watching live or catching up on demand. So in this webinar, I will be introducing you to three experts who each represent a service that we believe is essential to buy property safely, securely in Spain. So what I'm going to do is just ask our three experts just to introduce themselves and the company that they work for. Starting off with Michael Lucas, account manager at Smart Currency Exchange.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Michael Lucas, a senior account manager at Smart Currency Exchange. So our company, we're in place to sort of help you move your money over to buy a property and help you mitigate the risks that you can encounter when doing that.
Fantastic. Okay, and next we've got Mick Roscoe, who's an estate agent at Property Shop Spain.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us. My name is, Chris has just said, is Mick Roscoe. I have been a resident in Spain now for 23 years and involved the majority of that time in the property business estate agent based on the southern Costa Blanca. We have three offices that cover quite a wide area, and we can help you with whether you're looking for either a resale property or indeed new build, and have a team along with myself, team with many years of experience, and we feel that we can help you in lots of ways.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mick. And lastly, we put him last because of the football, Antonio Torres, a lawyer at Loxton Legal.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Chris, for inviting me to this webinar. My name is Antonio Torres. I'm co-founder of Luxton Legal, and what we do is provide legal support to foreigners who wish to buy properties in Spain or relocate to Spain. So we help them throughout the whole procedure. We are based in Madrid, although we help our clients all around Spain.
Excellent. Right. What we're going to do is we're going to take a typical process of buying in Spain, and we're going to start off with discussing budgets, and we'll talk to Michael. I'm going to ask Michael some questions about foreign exchange, and then we're going to talk about the going to Spain, doing those viewing trips, choosing what you want, how the market's doing, that kind of thing, and we'll ask some questions of Mick. And then we'll get onto the nitty-gritty of the legal process, and we'll talk with Antonio and put specific questions. But we don't just want to hear from me. We want to hear from you, and we want to hear your questions. So please put your questions into the tab, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and chuck in those questions, any order, and we will just get through them as many as we can. We've got an hour. Just so you get the feel of the thing, why doesn't people in the audience just tell us if they're looking to buy a retirement property, a investment property, or a holiday home, and then we can just to get a feel for the audience and to get you asking questions. And I am going to start off by chatting with Michael. So, like many people, I keep an eye on the exchange rate, and it's looking pretty good, isn't it, for UK buyers? Less good for American buyers.
Yeah, at the moment, the pound to buy the euro is seeing some of the strongest levels for just over a couple of years now. So that's partly due to the elections that we've just had, both in the UK and in France, actually. So the UK elections actually went through pretty smoothly without much of a hitch, and rates didn't react in quite such a volatile way as we were expecting, which I suppose is good. The volatility from the French side helped to contribute to a better exchange rate that we're seeing as now as the euro weakened. So good for us. Those two things since then, we've had Labour are sort of trying to establish more of a relationship with the EU and bring back some of the benefits that we don't have post Brexit, and so the pound has strengthened off the back of that as well. So good news there. On top of that, one of the main things we're sort of keeping an eye on going forwards that are affecting rates are both the Bank of England and the European Central Bank's interest rate decisions. There's a lot of eyes on that as there are talks of interest rates falling, which I think a lot of people, especially in the UK selling property, are waiting for to see if that will happen, and that closely relates to the strength of the pound. So that too is having a strong effect on the rates and will continue to do so. If you're talking about sort of less recent but still ongoing things that affect the exchange rates, the conflict in both Gaza at the moment and also continuing in Ukraine also is having an effect on things. Again, as it's sort of ongoing, it's less significant to the exchange rates right now, but it is still a consideration. So yeah, lots going on currently.
Excellent. Now, thank you for the audience. I've got loads of interesting questions coming in, which we will get to as we go along. And I would say, splitting about 50-50 retirement against holiday home so far. So that's interesting. Okay, so Michael, I am heading off to Spain very soon. I need to set a budget, but I'm not going to get the rate we were talking about that I'm hearing on the news, am I?
No, so that isn't a rate that is sort of commercially available to you and me. It's called the market rate, also known as the interbank rate. So you can Google what the exchange rate is at this moment in time. And if you were a bank or an organisation that buys billions of pounds worth of currency a year, you're able to achieve that sort of level. That sort of 118, 119 level we're seeing. But as a consumer, you or I, if we were buying an amount which is considerably less than that, then the exchange rates available are slightly lower, and that represents the difference in the cost to buy the currency and what we can then sell it to you at. Okay,
but we're still talking a totally different sort of rate to the bank, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So whereas the banks tend to be one of the least competitive ways to move money overseas, there'll be several cents away from where the market's trading, depending on which bank you speak to, whereas we tend to be much closer, as we specialize in currency and buy in higher volumes.
Okay, so tell me about those high volumes, because I know nothing about buying property in Spain. Can you just explain the rough process? How do I get the money to Spain? Not cash, obviously. So how does that all work?
Also, the process from start to finish when finding property is as follows. So, of course, first you want to research the location that you're going to buy in, and once you've done that, start looking at property online. Once you've maybe got together a short list of properties that you like the look of, you can get in contact with estate agents locally and arrange a viewing trip. Once you're out on your viewing trip, you will, of course, if you find the right property, you can negotiate a price and make an offer, which is hopefully accepted. From there, the period from your offer being accepted through to you completing, I'd say, is minimum 3 months in most cases. Can be as much as 9 months, depending on if you're buying, let's say, an off-plan property or one that's still being built. Yeah, that can vary. But then, of course, at the end of that period, you will then complete, and that's when your full balance of your payment in euros would be due.
Okay, and so tell me about my different transfer options.
So your different transfer options available to you depend on, I guess, your own personal cash flow. If you have money available now, or if you're waiting for money to be available later, let's say from a property selling, or maybe you have funds tied up in ISAs or loans where they're sort of locked away for a period. You do have the option to buy euros straight away, on the spot, where you tell us the amount of euros you need. We'll tell you what the exchange rate is and therefore what the cost in pounds is. That can be agreed with us. You then transfer your pounds to us, and then we can pay the euros out for you, and that can be made immediate, available immediately, or we can hold the euros for a period for you as well. So that's if you sort of have all your money together and you're sort of ready to go ahead right now. You also have options for securing your costs ahead of time with what's called a forward contract. So if you have an amount of euros that you need, that you're going to need in the future, but maybe you don't have your full sterling cash flow to pay for it just yet, you can say to us, right, I'm going to need this amount of euros on this date in the future, and you can book it up to 12 months ahead of time. So we'll quote you the exchange rate to buy the euros with the intention of you paying us in full on that date in the future. We'd only need a 5% deposit from you initially to secure that exchange rate and that cost in pounds. But then once that's in place, that is then sort of sitting there ready for when you need it. And then come completion, you would then pay us the balance of your pounds, the 95% that we don't already have, and then we can release the euros for you then. And it's all of the exchange rate that was agreed on day one. So that you've got options to sort of buy now or buy for later that can work for you depending on your situation.
Okay. And how early can I book that forward contract?
So you can book it as soon as you want to, really. As I said, the maximum amount of time you can book it to is 12 months. Some people like to, if they've got an amount of pounds that they know they're planning to spend, a specific budget in pounds, some people like to book a forward contract even before they've gone out to Spain, so that they know, okay, this is exactly how many euros I've got to play with my budget, and that can be really helpful then when you're looking at properties, knowing exactly what you can afford. Other people like to find the property first, commit themselves to purchasing it, and then buy the forward contract, so they know that exact amount of euros they need. I can now work out exactly how many pounds that would cost me, so that you can do it both ways.
Okay. Why? Okay, so I mean, there are still high street banks, I believe. You can just about find them somewhere. I think mine is now a Cornish bakery. But if I can find my old high street bank, why would I not use them? Why would I use Smart instead?
Sure. So obviously, as I mentioned before, banks tend to be the least cost efficient way of moving money overseas. They don't specialize in currency, and so they that if you went into your local bank, you wouldn't have a currency specialist in there to speak to. You'd have someone that you could say, well, look, this is the amount of money I need to move over. What exchange rate can you offer me? And they'll say to you, yeah, I can move that money for you. This is the rate. You've got to pay for it all in full right away, and the money has to go out right away as well. So you've got no capacity to buy in advance or sort of pre-plan what your costs are going to be. The other thing is, purchases overseas are full of risk and really complicated. And as I said, because they don't specialize in it, they've got no one with any expertise who can sort of talk you through the process of when you can be expected to make payments, to sort of make you aware of where we expect the market to move, so we can anticipate when may or may not be a sensible time to buy the currency. None of that is available if you were to use a bank. So it's just, obviously, a lot of people focus on the cost side of things, as you should, and that is a massive disadvantage if you use the bank. But yeah, everything else that comes with the service that you also don't get.
Sure. Okay, and I guess a similar situation with people like with the online exchanges as well.
Yeah, so the online exchanges, you got things like Wise or Revolut, or things like that, where they're really good services if you need to send small amounts overseas. If you're paying, I think Wise has an average transaction value of about £1,500, so they're set up perfectly for those kind of transactions. Whereas when you're talking 6-figure sums or 5 or 6-figure sums, and potentially needing to move those, they're not necessarily set up for that. They can have like a maximum limit of what you can send in one go, so you have to break up your payment, and it can be quite messy. And also, with those kind of services, you can't call anyone. If you want guidance, or in the unlikely event that something goes wrong, let's say you've made your payment out and the money hasn't turned up right away when you expect it, all you can do is go onto a chat bot, it's quite difficult to get someone on the phone. And so when you're talking about large sums of money that you're having to move overseas, it can be quite daunting. It really helps to have an expert on the other end of the phone, and that's just the kind of thing that you don't get with those sort of bare bones services.
Okay, now we are going to move on in a second. Just one last question. It's an important one. How do I know my money is safe with Smart?
Yeah, sure. So we as an organization, we've been around since 2004, so 20 years of trading this year. We're just celebrating our 20th anniversary at the moment. We've been authorized with the Financial Conduct Authority since our inception. So they're the main sort of regulatory body in the UK for financial organizations. So fully authorized by them, and all of your money we hold, if you transfer through us, is held through accounts with Barclays. Segregated client holding accounts that don't mix with our business capital. So, your money is completely covered up to an unlimited amount, in the event of, in the worst case scenario, something happened to us as an organization. But, just generally totally secure.
Okay, fantastic. Right. Well, don't go away because we are going to come back to you. But now let's talk to Mick. Let's talk about the Spanish. Let's start off by talking about the Spanish property market. What's popular right now? Is it villas? Is it apartments? Is it new developments? I believe that's come back in a big way.
Yeah, new developments in particular in the area that we cover, southern Costa Blanca. New developments have come back very, very much so in the past 3-4 years. They probably had a boom time, as we called it, for new build off-plan buying 22 years ago. That kind of dropped off quite considerably 2008 when the world turned upside down, I guess. So that pretty much stopped, and the builders stopped building. So it then went on to pretty much resale properties, things that are obviously already finished and there to buy straight away. But the new build has come back massively the last 3 or 4 years, with a spread of pretty much across the board. Apartments and townhouses, probably more of those being built than the villas, and that is because that's where the demand is for the apartments and the townhouses, not so much the villas, albeit there is a demand for that, so yeah, definitely very, very busy. And at the moment he's very, very busy with lots of Europeans and also people from further afield coming over and buying. And there is and also we've seen in the last 6-8 months, 9 months maybe, quite a rise in prices as well. So yeah, so good.
Okay,
a good time.
Have the drop. Okay, fantastic. One thing I've never quite known is if you buy off plan and you're waiting a year or so, are you getting it cheaper than if it was a completely finished property?
You can be getting it cheaper because you could buy something this week that's off plan, not even out of the ground, even maybe not even in some cases not started, and because you set the price when you actually reserve the property, then I don't know, just use a figure. If you would set a price and you're buying something at 100,000 euros, then by the time that property is delivered, then if you were to put that back up for sale again straight away, which you could, then you might see it be worth 120, 130,000 maybe, So it is a good thing to buy off plan for sure. Yeah. Okay,
but there's property taxes on new builds, I believe.
Yes. In our area, we are governed by the Valencian. We come in the Valencian region. And if you are buying a resale property, then the property tax is 10%. If you are buying new build or off plan, there is an additional 1.5%, payable. I do believe that in certain regions, then the tax is a little bit less, but I don't know how much less because we're not in that region. I'm sure maybe Antonio, who's joining us today, would know that because he deals with all the regions. But yeah, generally speaking, well, in our area, 10% for a resale, 11.5% for new build.
Okay, well that's not so bad, I guess. Okay, now let's imagine I'm coming out on my viewing trip. I've spoken to Michael. I know how much I'm going to get for my pounds, and but how much have I got to add on for the buying costs?
So the obviously the tax we've just spoken about, either 10% or 11.5% in our area, and then on top of that, you've got the cost for your legal representation, for the notary, for the land registry, various other things. We tend to use a standard thing of around €5,000 on top of whatever, plus the tax. You get the tax, and then on top, around €5,000. That could be a little bit more, but it could also be a little bit less. Some of that depends on the lawyer's costs, what they charge. And can vary with. It's kind of when you go to the notary. Notary costs can change, and that can change again. I'm told because of the size of the escritura, the deeds of the property, and things like that. But pretty standard. If you said €5,000, I don't think we'd be too far off. So.
Okay. Now, I think we get a much more comprehensive service, don't we, when we're buying in Spain? I know anyone who's bought a UK property, if you asked how to connect the electricity, they'd look at you as if you were mad.
Yeah.
But I believe you help with the paperwork and and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, we can pretty much, with having been here for so long and experienced for so long, we can do and advise on pretty much anything at all. If people come out on a viewing trip, then we obviously we offer the service where we pick people up at the airport. We can arrange accommodation for them. They come out. We then take them out to look at properties, whether that be resale or new build, and we can do or a bit of both. Once they have decided, they've found something that they want, they make an offer. We negotiate that offer on their behalf, and then if they do get something and they decide to proceed, we can recommend lawyers. We obviously can recommend currency exchange, and they take that forward. Afterwards, when everything is completed, we can also offer services, builders, and associated things like that people need. We also can arrange and offer people, if they buy in Spain, have to get an NIE number, which is national identification. We can arrange that for them. So we're pretty much, yes, a one-stop shop for most things that people would need, to be honest.
Okay, brilliant. Now, we've got a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to throw in some of these as they come in. One of which was, what is a reasonable percentage offer you can make for a property without causing offence? That's from Stephen.
Right. Without causing offence. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. We are finding in the past, say, 8-9 months that on resale property, and people do ask us this, I love this house, but what would be a reasonable offer? And we say probably, try 10% off the asking price. If anybody wanted to do more than that, we would kind of say that's really potentially offending the vendor, and may just get them to say no, and we also say, if you start at 10% off, but be prepared that you may and particularly at the moment, you may have to get very close to asking price because of the way the market is, that's on resales. On new build, generally speaking, you can't make an offer. It's 200,000 euros, and that is the price. Occasionally, we can negotiate with the builder. Maybe they'll throw some, I don't know, gifts, if you like, in. They might do air conditioning, they might do furniture, something like that. But on new build, it's pretty much set as it is. So, yeah.
Okay. We have a question from Tracy. What happens if the builder goes bust?
Right. So you then with new build. So the majority of the developers, when you pay your deposit, and the structure of how you pay when you're buying a new build off plan, because it can be new build off plan or it can be new build that is part finished, whatever. So generally speaking, you would pay around something like 5,000-6,000 euros initial deposit, and then negotiated stage payments. Generally speaking, anywhere between 25 and 40% of the total purchase price within about 6 weeks, with a further stage payment, generally speaking, about 3 months, and then the rest on completion. With most developers, if not all, the money that you pay doesn't go to the builder. It goes into an escrow account, protected. So if the builder does disappear for whatever reason, or as you just said, or Trace said, goes bankrupt, then okay, you're not going to get your property, but you're not going to lose your money.
Sure. Okay. Well, just on that point, perhaps I can just bring Michael back for a second. So, if we're talking about a property going up over the course of two years, is it possible to extend that forward contract for the length of the buying of the new build process, the off-plan process?
Yeah, so you can extend the maturity date of a forward contract, no problem at all. As I said before, the maximum amount of time you can have a forward contract with us is 1 year from the date that we're discussing it. So let's say you booked it with let's say 6 months maturity in mind. If we then get to 6 months and the property isn't ready yet and you don't need the money yet, you can roll the contract and say, yeah, actually we'll agree to pay you on a different date now. That's fine. The maximum, let's say you're 6 months down the line, the maximum that you could then roll it is another year from there. So it's always a year from the date that we're from the today's date that it can be booked from. So you couldn't sort of book 2 years in the future from right now, but a year in, you could then book for another year from then.
Okay. While we're talking new builds, let's just bring in Antonio and just ask if the legal processes of buying new build are any different. Are they more expensive? Are they more complicated? Is there anything to fear from buying off plan or new build?
Well, it's a different process, and it takes longer to buy a new build property than a already existing one. But the difference between a new build and an existing property is mainly on the contracts that you sign. Well, at the beginning, as Mick said, you sign like a deposit reservation, mostly around 5,000 to 6,000 euros, and then they make you sign what we call a private purchase contract. Whether in a second-hand property, you usually sign an ARRES agreement. Okay, so in this private purchase contract, they establish all the terms and conditions for the purchase completion in the new build that could go from 1-2 years, depending on the construction. And you usually cannot negotiate the clauses on a new build because usually the constructor is the strong party. So as depending on the size of the construction, you may not be able to negotiate. So you have to adapt, and you would be considered as a consumer, even if you sign the contract and you are not fully in agreement with terms established in the contract, but they make you sign it. No? And what Mick said about the amounts that you deposit in an escrow account, that's completely right. You would be guaranteed with bank insurance that should be provided by the promoter, so that if the constructor goes bankrupt, you can just use that bank guarantee to recover the funds.
Okay, excellent. Right, back to Mick and back to buying property. Jane has asked if you are. Can you do your own property survey? Well, firstly, is it normal to get a property survey done? And secondly, is that something you can facilitate for buyers? And thirdly, can buyers just do their own?
Okay. Well, the first question is, generally speaking, we find that people don't have property surveys. It's very, very rare. It just doesn't seem to happen. Can you have a property survey done, and could we facilitate that on your behalf? Yes, of course. There's several companies around, surveyors, obviously, that can come and do that for you. But it is, as I say, it's very rare. Can you do a survey on your own? I suppose if you we get sometimes, you get people coming viewing who may be builders or something like that. You know, can you have a look round yourself and kind of work out whether things are right? Yes, you could. You know, but as I say, very, very, very rare that people do it. And I think one of the reasons is because, particularly with properties that are not old, you know, I mean, the majority of properties that we deal with would be no older than 30, maybe 40 years old. And particularly now, the construction of the building is usually a concrete framework, and then filled in with whatever way they fill it in. So there's really, people just seem to think, well, there's no need for a survey because everything's okay. But yes, it can certainly be done, that we can get a survey done for them by a completely independent company. Yeah.
Okay. Now, school holidays start tomorrow, and I guess this isn't a great time to come on a viewing trip. Or is it? Are we still okay to come out on viewing trips, even though it's the height of summer?
Yeah. We would say to people not the best time to come, including right now. We're due to have temperatures this week getting high into the 40s. So not the most pleasant thing to be going around viewing properties and things like that. And Antonio, who we know is based in Madrid. I'm sure up in Madrid at the moment it's very, 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 very warm, but it's warm down on the costas as well. So people can still come, absolutely no problem. You know, if people are restricted to, we have to come now, then so be it. Another problem, particularly if you are coming to view new build, is that August, generally speaking, then a lot of the show houses, a lot of the builders just are not there. They're not open. So it can be restrictive to be able to view as much as you may need to view. If you come in looking at resales, then generally speaking, not a problem. And traditionally, with the years of experience we've got, the most popular time of year to come and do viewings is September, October, November. That is with experience the busiest time. Yeah, and a little bit cooler. So.
Okay. Yeah, and but I guess I mean I want to be in by the autumn. So how long is it going to take? Is the process going to take when I'm from start to finish? Would you say?
Okay, we say a standard on a resale property from viewing, then you make the offer, we have the offer accepted, and we go to contract. We said, generally speaking, 3 months, 12 weeks, but we have done completions as quick as a week, which is, I must admit, is very unusual. So anywhere between as quick as a week and kind of 3 months. Equally, if people need it to be longer than that, then that's what we discuss at the time when we're making the offer and things like that. So it can be extended to longer, but I would use a figure of around 3 months for resales. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, one last question. If I'm buying a property to let out, I know a lot of people, even if they're not investors, they just want to do a few short-term lets. I know it's a very controversial area at the moment. Can you advise the areas where we're allowed to do that and the processes?
Yes, if somebody's buying it, as you say, to rent out in our particular area, and which is quite big, but it does differ in other areas. If you were going to buy the property and rent it out for short-term letting, so holidays and things like that, then you have to get a tourist license, basically, which, as long as a particular area is issuing those licenses, then that's not difficult to get. And then you get your tourist license and you can rent the property out. Absolutely no problem at all. In our particular area, there are kind of some towns that won't issue a tourist license. The town next door will issue a tourist license. So now we would know in our particular area, right? If you were wanting it to rent out and you want to buy it here, then we wouldn't sell you something here, because we know full well that you won't get a tourist license. But you could if we go to the next village. So that differs. I'm guessing pretty much all over Spain. And it can change from a village here and the next village, yes, our village, no. If, generally speaking, if you are wanting to rent out what we would call long term, which is 3 months and above, yeah, then currently, again, in our particular area, there is no need for the property to be licensed, because it's not for short-term lets, it is for long-term letting. So in that case, you pretty much buy anywhere you want,
Excellent. Okay. Now, Antonio's been sitting there very patiently. Let's move on to the legal processes. And first off, Antonio, when should we be contacting you as a buyer? When we've made an offer, or long before that?
I would recommend long before that, as from the beginning, when they start searching for properties, just to have the whole picture of the property purchase process, and they can understand in advance what it implies buying a property and all the taxes involved, and not just when buying the property, but when they become owners, so that they can have the full picture. They should know that even if it goes against my interest, that it's not compulsory to hire a lawyer for the purchase completion. It's just what we provide is legal support or advice in all the areas, and not just the property purchase procedure, but the tax and everything related to the purchase or relocation. But I would recommend at least, or not hiring, but have a call with a lawyer or some expert that could advise a bit on how does the purchase procedure works and what it implies by being an owner of a property.
Okay, great. Now, we've had a question from Gabriella, who's asked, can you buy a property in Spain without having a visa in place?
Yes, indeed. It's not compulsory to be a Spanish resident or having a Spanish visa to be an owner of a property. So you can buy a property even with a visa. What you would need is, as Mick said before, an NI number, which is like a tax ID number, and it's compulsory to have when buying the property at the purchase completion at the notary office. And you need the NI number, and you also need to register that NI number at the tax agency, which is often people doesn't know that they think that with the NIE suffice, but they also need to register the NI number at the tax agency just to be able to pay the taxes, the property transfer tax, which in Valencia is 10%, and in other regions may vary between 6 to 11%. So it depends. But yeah, you can buy a property without a visa, and you will have the same rights as any owner.
Okay, and when it comes to getting a visa, you can help with that as well as the property buying process, I understand.
Yes, indeed. So, and that's something that we discussed even before they buy a property. Just we ask if they need the property for holidays or for relocation, so that we can plan in advance the relocation, and they can know what do they have to do, if they need to buy first the property or they need to get first the visa. It depends on the kind of visa. There are different visas to come to Spain depending on each scenario. So the most well-known visas would be the non-lucrative visa. And then there is this new visa, which is called the Digital Nomads visa, which is for expats who wish to relocate to Spain to work in Spain for a foreign company. And we also got the Golden Visa. So these are the most common or most well-known visas. There are other visas, the business activity, but usually these three visas are the ones that expats often ask about.
Yeah, we've had a lot of questions about working in Spain. Mm-hmm. We've had Andrew. Andrew says, "Am I allowed to work in Spain as a foreigner?" And I can't find them. But lots about working there, maybe part time. So, what about working visas? How possible is that?
Yes, well, the working visa, for example, with a non-lucrative visa, you cannot work in Spain as it is considered for retirement. So with that visa, you cannot work. If you don't have a visa, as you all know, they can stay in Spain up to 90 days with the Schengen, and then they have to go out. And within those 90 days, you are not supposed to work in Spain. But there's, for example, this digital nomad visa, which grants working and residency permits, and they will be allowed to work in Spain for foreign companies, but not for Spanish companies, or at least not invoicing more than 50% of their income should not come from Spanish companies. But with this visa, the digital nomad, that could be applied also from Spain, so they can come to Spain without a visa with the Schengen, and then they can apply for the digital nomad visa while in Spain. So that's and within 20 business days they have the resolution from the administration, and it's granted for 3 years. Whether, for example, with a non-lucrative visa, you have to apply at the consulate. You cannot apply in Spain.
Got it. Yes. Okay. And the golden visa. I know it's coming to an end. Has it ended, or has there been a reprieve?
No, it's still in force, but the golden visa that the Spanish government wants to eliminate is the golden visa on real estate, because there are other options on golden visa, but the most well-known or the most famous is the golden visa on real estate, which is if you invest at least 500,000 euros on real estate, you can get the golden visa. The government announced back in March, I think it was, that they were going to eliminate the visa. They did try to issue an amendment on a law that was going to be approved in the Congress back in June, but then that law didn't go through, so they have to start the process again, and nobody knows when would it come to an end, the golden visa on real estate, but it's still in force. So people can apply, but the thing is, as the purchase procedure takes some time, because you have to apply once the property is registered at the land registry. But well, you can apply before with the Arras agreement, but well, usually you apply once you buy the property, and the process takes like 3 months or so. Then I would recommend that if someone is thinking about applying for the golden visa on real estate, to do it as soon as possible, just in case in September, for example, it's eliminated. But there are other options on golden visa. For example, if you invest or if you deposit 1 million euros in a Spanish bank account, you get the visa directly, and then you can use those funds to buy a property. So it's like kind of a trick that you could do and get the golden visa, which is actually, I would say, the best visa or the best residence permit, because you can apply also from Spain. And to renew this visa, you don't need to stay a minimum of 6 months in Spain like with other visas. So you can go back and forth.
Okay. Now let's go back to the actual buying process. Mm-hmm. So, can you just take us through a normal resale property buying process?
Okay, so it's usually three steps or 3 stages on when you buy a property. The first one would be like when you see the property that you want to buy, and you will usually sign what we call the reserva or a deposit, so that anyone else can bid on the property. So the property is booked for you, and after 15 days, more or less, it's signed what we call the Arras agreement. The Arras agreement is like a commitment to purchase contract, in where you deposit 10% usually. By law, there is no, I mean, you can agree how much amount you want to pay, but usually, or it's common to make a down payment of 10% of the purchase price. And the last stage would be the purchase completion at the notary office. So between the reservation and the purchase completion at the notary, there are no legal deadlines, and as Mick said, can go for a week or 3 months. Usually, it depends on if the buyer needs a mortgage, then it would take a bit longer, because the bank would need to verify all the documentation before granting the mortgage. Or if the seller is selling his main property and needs to go to other properties, so that can be agreed with between the parties. And at the notary office is when you become the owner and they handle the keys of the property, and that's when you become the legal owner of the property. Although the purchase deed needs to be registered at the land registry, so that any third party can know that you are the owner of the property. And and it takes like around 1 extra month for the purchase deed to be registered at the land registry. But you become the owner when you purchase the property at the notary office, and not when it's registered at the land registry.
Okay, excellent. And who organises the notary? Is that something that I would do, or you would do?
The buyer is the one entitled to choose the notary. So if the buyer has a lawyer, it would be the lawyer, or the real estate agent that will handle the management with the notary office. The notary is different from a UK notary. It's a different because the notary here he doesn't do the research or survey on the property. He grants the deed and attests that the property has been bought. So it's the buyer who can choose the notary. And the notary is like a neutral party, so he doesn't work neither for the seller nor for the buyer. but it can be chosen by the buyer. And of course, if they do it through a lawyer or a real estate agent, we help them with all the management and drafting the purchase deed and just making sure that everything is in order before signing.
Okay. Now, if I find a property and, well, if you're anything like me, and more specifically my wife, you think, I love the property, but I want that there, I want this there, I want that organized there, I want a pool there, and I want that converted. Could you help me tell me in advance of me making an offer or getting too far along the process whether I'm likely to get planning permission and what that might cost?
Yeah, sure. And that should be verified in advance with the town hall. And the thing is that usually it's very complicated to get in touch with the town hall technician because, well, they used to work just 2 or 3 days per week. So it has to be planned in advance and make sure at least having an initial contact with the town hall, just proposing what you are planning to do, so that they can guide you and check out if that would be feasible or not, because it depends on the town hall planification. So what we do as lawyers is check out if, depending on the classification of the land, if it's urban or rustic land, it depends what you can do over those lands, and then the specifics of constructing a swimming pool or a storage room, and that has to be verified in advance, even before buying the property, although it may take time to get the license. So because it depends on its town hall, but yeah, that's something that can be verified, and perhaps you can do a 25 meters swimming pool, but you could do a 50-meter swimming pool. So
Sure.
but that's something to be checked in advance, and even before buying the property, just to avoid any surprises.
Okay. And second, and okay, last question until we get on to open things up a bit. What about the process of applying for a visa? Let's focus on the non-lucrative visa, because the retirement visa, because I think that's the most common one. So just talk me through the process.
Okay. Yes. So some of our clients ask if it's better to, for example, buy first the property and then apply for the visa, or the other way around. So there is no right answer to that. It depends on each client and on each situation. It's not compulsory to have a property to apply for the non-lucrative visa, so you can apply without having a property, and well, that would be recommendable, I would say. Like first get the visa, or at least start the process, and then buy the property. But if it's the other way around, it's okay. It can be done that way. The non-lucrative visa, how it does work. So there are certain requirements established by law. It has to be applied at the consulate of your place of residency. So, for example, if you live in Manchester, you'll have to apply at the Spanish consulate in Manchester. If you live in London, you have to apply at the Spanish consulate in London. And the main requirement of the non-lucrative visa is to have a monthly income of 2,400 euros per month. Okay, and that has to be shown. It depends on the consulate. You have to accredit it per month or on a global figure, or of the whole year.
Sure.
And there are other documents that you have to provide, but that's the main requirement. And then you apply at the consulate, and the consulate has 3 months to solve if they grant the visa or not. It depends on which consulate you apply to, if they are overloaded with applications. But usually the London and Manchester's consulates work fast. So I would say, like, as from when you apply till they grant the visa would be like around month and a half, 2 months, well, depending if because they can also request more information or more documentation. Is up to them. There's a list of documents that they have to provide, but the consulate, if they have doubts about, they can request more information. But the main requirement is, yes, this 2,400 euros per 200 per month, and it will be granted for 1 year. Then it will be possible to renew the visa, but initially it's granted for 1 year.
Okay, lovely. So I'm just answering people's questions online as we speak. So okay, let me just ask Michael. I'm very interested in the forward contract element, but I'm worried that I made a legal contract, and then the sale falls through. So what happens in that circumstance?
So yeah, you've got two scenarios there if that were to happen. So if you've agreed to buy a contract with us and you've agreed to pay us X amount of money by a certain date, if a sale falls through, you can either look at it two ways. If you're thinking, okay, this sale's fallen through, but I'm still planning to buy in Spain, I'm going to need the euros at some point, you can, as I touched on earlier, roll the contract. So just agree with us a date in the future again that we're going to kick the can down the road, and actually you'll pay us the money that date. That's fine. Alternatively, if it falls through and you decide actually we're going to pull the whole plug on the buying the property, you do have the option to cancel the contract and sell the currency back. So obviously we will have bought all the euros for you up front. We can buy them, sell them back into pounds. Obviously that would be the exchange rate at the time when we cancelled. So it's possible that the amount of pounds that you buy back may not be exactly what you sold in the first place. But obviously it's something we can discuss with you at the time if for any reason it's going to be less than you originally sold.
Excellent. Okay, right. I'm going to ask these questions that have come in, and then whoever wants to answer them is very welcome to. So Jane has said, what are the language requirements for becoming a resident in Spain?
I mean, for becoming a resident, there are no language requirements. I mean, it will be just for the Spanish nationality that you will have to pass some exams, but for being resident or for a visa, is not required to be fluent in Spanish or even to speak Spanish.
Okay. Now, Jamie has said, what's the best process for moving or immigration to Spain? We would need to apply for an NIE number to get a bank account. Do I need it? Okay. Here's an interesting question from Jamie. Do I need a job to get a working visa? So do you need to get the job first and then apply, or can you get the visa and then look for a job?
Well, it will depend on the kind of visa that you apply for. If it's the digital nomad, you need to work in advance. If it's, for example, if you get a golden visa, you can search for a job after you get the visa. There is also another kind of visa, which is the business activity one, which is granted by setting up a business here in Spain, but it takes longer. So it depends on the visa. But for the usual one, for the digital nomad, you need work in advance. And for the golden visa or the digital nomad visa, or the business activity visa, you can apply afterwards.
Okay. We've had a few questions on mortgages. Mick, is that are you able to help people with mortgages? Are they readily available? For either for people moving to Spain as residents or as non-residents?
Yes, they are available for both. With foreign nationals, shall we say, it does vary from bank to bank. Generally speaking, they can raise 70% of the value of the property on a mortgage. it doesn't apply because for Spanish nationals or Spanish residents, then they can get a higher amount. But generally speaking, I would say maximum 70% of whatever the bank valued the property at. Yeah, not necessarily 70% of what the purchase price has been. Yeah, it would be 70% of what the bank value it at, or 70% of the purchase price if that was less than the valuation. Yeah. But yes, readily available, absolutely no problem, and quite an easy process as well. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's see. We're running out. We've run out of time actually. But let me just see. Well, okay. Sharon has asked: are there additional fees applicable on a resale property compared to a off plan? So I guess we know we're paying a bit more tax. Are we saving anywhere?
No, the only thing that you save on, as I said, you pay 10% property tax on a resale. Certainly in this area, I think, as Antonio said, it does vary slightly. I think, for instance, Murcia, I think is 8%. I think.
Yes, Andalusia is 7%.
Yeah,
Catalonia is 10%.
Yeah. So. Okay. Yeah, but then and again, Antonio may be able to answer on this. In this area, it is 1.5% extra tax for a new build. Again, I don't know, Antonio. Does that differ in
it depends
areas?
On the region. For a new build, can go from 0.5 to 1.5%. So it really depends.
But in general, less to buy a resale than to buy a new build. Yeah, but only because of the tax element.
Yes, because it applies different tax. On resale, we call it the ITP, and on new build, it's called the VAT, the VAT. So that's why that's the difference.
Okay, so I've very much got the impression from today's chat that it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to get a visa. It's easy to retire to Spain. There's a network of people just like yourselves who can help us buy at every stage, and it all seems pretty doable, I have to say. So if anybody is watching this thinking, "Oh, it's going to be such a process," I don't think I can do it. Certainly, the message I'm getting is that just go ahead because it's not so hard. So. Thank you to all our experts for your insightful tips and advice. To our viewers, I really would recommend that you get in touch with our experts. You'll be sent their details, and do get in contact with your individual questions. We had so many questions, I wasn't able to answer them all. Before we finish, I would like to invite you to leave a review on Trustpilot, which there should be a link come up. Yep, there you go. My faithful assistant has helped me with that. So do feel free to leave us a review on Trustpilot. That'd be really helpful. But more to the point, have trust in our experts and yourself, and go and make that Spanish property dream come true. So thank you very much, Mick. Thank you very much, Antonio, and thank you very much, Michael.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And most of all, thank you. Bye-bye.